Warren Haynes, welcome to Blues on the Hill, welcome to Australia.
Thank you. Honored to be back.
Now, as I said, Gov't Mule, your band, keeping that jam band feel going. Started back in 1995, yeah?
That was our first official year. We did a few shows in 94, but our first record came out in 95.
So tell us about the history of the band and the reason for forming it. A side project from the Allman Brothers?
Yeah, you know, myself and Alan Woody at that time were talking about doing something for fun during the downtime that we had with the Allman Brothers. And originally there was no pressure to be like a real band, it was just something to do. And we had no idea that we would even do it for more than 1 year, really. But we wound up making a record, and there started becoming a buzz about what was happening, and the next thing you know, we became a real band.
And the name, there's a history behind the name.
Well, we were given the name by J-Mo, who was one of the two original drummers in the Allman Brothers, and he's from Gulfport, Mississippi, and apparently in Mississippi, Gov't Mule is a reference to a woman's ass, and when he told us that was our name, we laughed and said, I guess it is.
Awesome. And so tell us about your history with the Allman Brothers and your time with the Allman Brothers.
Started in the Allman Brothers 1989 for a reunion tour, and it was very successful and everybody had fun, so we decided to do it again. And 25 years later, we're still doing it. So I had 25 years in the Allman Brothers. We stopped touring officially in 2014, but it was an amazing experience. You know, I've always told people that if I were going to join a band that I grew up listening to, the Allman Brothers would be at the top of the list.
Yeah, and still going with, of course, Derek Trucks with Tedeschi Trucks, and Devin's still out. He was out here last year with his band, so there's still that tradition going. There's still parts of the Allman Brothers everywhere. Yeah,
O'Teal, the bass player O'Teal Burbridge is playing with Dan and Company, and Tedeschi Trucks is touring, and they're making a record right now. Gov't Mule is promoting our newest record. J-Mo's Jazz Band is touring. So there are a lot of people keeping the music alive, you know. And I think aside from just the family members, you know, the Allman Brothers were such a big influence on that scene and that kind of music that it'll continue to grow in a lot of ways.
Now, can you take me all the way back to when you first heard the blues? Can you remember when you first heard the blues and the effect it had on you?
I probably heard B.B. King when I was 8 or 9, and at that time I had already started singing, and I was mostly listening to soul music, James Brown and Wilson Pickett, and Otis Redding, and Sam and Dave and the Four Tops and the Temptations. And I remember hearing B.B. King's voice and really falling in love with his voice. That was before I picked up a guitar, which would be a few years later. But when I first started playing guitar, it was hearing Johnny Winter and Cream and Jimi Hendrix. And then it was through that music that I realized they were all listening to Albert King and Freddie King and Muddy Waters and Son House and Howlin' Wolf and Elmore James. So luckily, having two older brothers, I was able to discover all that music at a really young age.
And so you traced it all the way back? Did you go back to the sort of Charlie Pattons and all that sort of stuff, or did you sort of more the electric side of things?
Well, when I was very young, I didn't connect as much with the acoustic stuff probably till I was maybe 14 or so. And I remember hearing Son House for the first time and it really changing my life. But yeah, you got to go back and check out everything, you know, Charlie Patton and Tampa Red and all the stuff that came early, Lonnie Johnson, you know, there's so much great stuff. When I first heard Robert Johnson, I wasn't quite ready for it, you know. It took me a couple years to realize what a big influence that was, because as you said, at that time I was mostly listening to electric music. But then eventually, you know, stuff like Sun House and Book of White were things that I would listen to every day.
You've got such an intensity to your playing too. Where does that come from? Where's that intensity?
I guess, you know, since the first three guitar heroes that I had were Johnny Winter and Clapton and Hendrix, all of that music at that time was taking the blues to a more intense sort of rock place, you know. And I guess that's always stayed with me. But I also love the subtle stuff, you know. I mean, when I get saturated with what I'm doing, I love to just play traditional blues and you know, I really enjoy having the opportunity to play a lot of different types of music. So I don't like being stereotyped and just being one thing, you know.
And what about as you tour the world, the state of the blues at the moment? How do you see the blues at the moment, the future of the blues? How do you see the music at the moment?
Well, I think good. You know, I think we went through a period where maybe it wasn't so good, but we're starting to see a lot of young musicians and artists like Marcus King, who
great player.
Yeah, is a great singer, a great player, a great songwriter. There are people like that I feel like are really, and a lot of folks that are kind of bringing it back. You know, music kind of moves in waves, you know, and now I think it's on an upswing again. Sometimes we go through periods where the music is more like background music, and hopefully we're coming out of that right now.
There's some great kids, Taj Mahal with John Tavius Willis and Kingfish from Clarksdale. There's some great young kids.
Absolutely. And it's nice to see, because that's the future. That's what's going to keep everything alive.
And your band, Famous, of course, you know, I saw your set last night. It's absolutely awesome. And the great thing about your band and for your fans is you never do the same set twice, do you? You've always got a different set. So people are always going to see another set from Gov't Mule.
Yeah, tonight we'll play an entirely different show than we played last night. Maybe we'll repeat one song, maybe. But for us, it's fun to not play the same songs every night, and we have a lot of fans that keep coming back, and they don't know what to expect.
Last question. You've been doing this for a long time, 40 or so years on the road. What's been your most memorable moment in music?
Oh, it's a hard one. You know, I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot. You know, playing with Bob Dylan, playing with Eric Clapton. I was fortunate enough to play with a lot of my blues heroes, some of which are no longer around, like Willie Dixon and John Lee Hooker and Albert Collins. I think playing with B.B. King was a huge thing for me, because he was one of my first heroes, you know, but again, I just consider myself lucky. Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your Bluesfest. Let's go out with a track off your latest album. Do you want to pick one? You got a favourite to spin to go out on?
Well, we did a version of Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground, which is an old Blind Willie Johnson traditional song. And we kind of turned it into a rock song, and I wrote lyrics to it. The original version was instrumental, so that's probably a good place to go.
Awesome. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.